Hey everybody, I'm Mike Lieberman, CEO and Chief Revenue Scientist at Square Two. Welcome to What's Wrong with Revenue, Season 3, Episode 5. And today we're going to talk about our relatively new topic, revenue operations. I'm very, very, very happy to have a friend of mine, Noah Burke, co-founder at Obo, one of HubSpot's elite partners. I'll let Noah introduce himself and his agency in a little bit, but the goal of the show today is to dig into this new concept called RevOps. I know a lot of people have been talking about it. I know people have new jobs, new roles, new tasks, new responsibilities. And no, I'm curious what you think, but I'm not sure everybody knows exactly what we're talking about when we say revenue operations and RevOps. So my goal with you over the next couple of episodes is to dig into this a little bit and help people who are trying to figure this out feel a little bit better about it, maybe make some good decisions. So with that, I'll let you kick us off and introduce yourself, and then I'll kind of guide the conversation on a couple of important RevOps related topics.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction. Again, Noah Burke, one of the co-founders of Obio, my business partner. We started it back in 2016, proud partners with HubSpot, one of their elite partners. We're also partners with Monday.com and Salesforce and help clients integrate all the applications. RevOps is a fun topic for me to talk about because I've seen the evolution of this over the last several years when the word didn't even, quote, exist in our lexicon. And here it is today.
Right. Yeah. So that's a great place to start. Right. So, it's new. I feel like probably one of the software companies invented it to help them sell more software. But maybe we could really kind of start at the beginning and unpack this a little bit. How has this evolved into a new role? I'm really curious in terms of your perspective, like what kind of skills make up the skill set associated with RevOps, and how do growth-oriented companies really start thinking about this as a role that they need to get them to hit their goal? So let's just start at the beginning. Like, where did this come from, and how are we here talking about revenue operations today?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think part of it's the history of revenue operations. Before, people may have thought of sales operations, marketing operations, service ops, data ops, and all these other terminology. And what ended up happening, there were silos inside of organizations. So your sales op person, maybe they're working on your CRM, helping with sales enablement, but they weren't really interacting with the marketing team, which wasn't interacting with the customer service team. And what ended up happening, you had silos of data throughout the organization. And the idea of a RevOps person is to break down the silos inside an organization via sales, marketing, and service, all the way through to fulfillment. And to be able to help organizations create that flywheel effect they're all looking for. And so think of RevOps as the highest level in the sense of operationally. A lot of organizations, maybe they don't have a sales ops, maybe they don't have a marketing ops, but they got a RevOps person. And so a lot of what they're doing within RevOps is thinking cross-departmental. Not only what does that technology stack look like and how does it all work together? What's integrated? What's their data? What does the reporting and KPIs look like? How are we assisting both marketing and sales? Really, it's about cross-functional collaboration and alignment inside a company. And that's what was missing. And partly is because I don't necessarily think the technology was there to enable someone in a true RevOps function inside an organization. But a lot of what a RevOps person does is not only make sure all the technology is working together, but also giving you actionable insights into that information. Most organizations fail when it gets to the insights. In other words, how many leads have we generated this month and how many deals have we closed? But what is the time to close a deal, or what is the time to call back a lead, or all these other metrics that are necessary? And they'd be able to follow that customer journey from the moment they submitted their information all the way to the moment they purchase your product or service, to service and then upsell. And so I think when it comes to RevOps, it's as much about technology integrations and KPIs as it is about process optimization and having a holistic view of the organization.
Yeah, so there's a lot in that, right? And let's be honest. Like, this idea of alignment, like, it's not super common in a lot of companies, right? They're still pretty siloed, sales, marketing, and customer service. So I want to tell you a story because it's as you're talking about it, it kind of resonated with me. So I'm a little older than you. When I started at my very first job, it was at Dun& Bradstreet. Okay. I don't know how much you know about Dun & Bradstreet, but at the time they were probably one of the most traditional sales organizations on the planet. And by that, I mean, these guys were like Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross sales guys, right? They had a quota and they pounded the street and they just tried to make their number. And believe it or not, they had a guy in the regional office I think he was called sales administration, but looking back on it, he was sales ops, right? He did reports. He didn't have great technology because this was many years ago. I'm not going to date myself, but he kind of was the right-hand man to the VP of sales for that region. And he organized the data and he did reporting and he did commission reports and he did kind of, quota-based reporting so that everybody knew. He published stuff that the salespeople knew, like where they were in their rankings and everything like that. And that was sales ops at the time, right? The way you describe it. I think maybe as marketing technology became more advanced, you then needed someone to do similar kinds of things for the marketing folks, which then kind of spawned the marketing operations person, the person who was kind of responsible for some of the same things like the dashboards and the reports and the data, right? And maybe some automation if something needed to be automated. And the marketing people kind of told them what they needed. And this person went into HubSpot, since we'll just talk about HubSpot, and they pressed all the buttons and fired all the keys and set everything up. And, marketing operations was now born, right? So I'm curious from your perspective, how many, and I don't mean like numbers, but like how prominent is this idea of alignment? How has it matured to produce this revenue operations role that kind of looks across marketing, sales, and even customer service, which I didn't even get into? I always feel like customer service is kind of the third of the three sisters in terms of getting everybody organized. Like marketing and sales kind of can come together. They always have to drag service like into the meeting to like be part of this triumvirate. But when did revenue operations really like come into play in terms of this alignment across all of these three areas?
Well, I think you said something in the very beginning. The person that was working at Dun & Bradstreet, more like an administrator. That was their role, their name. And oftentimes they're really operations. To your point, They're building out reports, they're building out, they're making sure the data, they're coming up with commissions, et cetera. I think what has ended up happening is that organizations realize silos essentially inhibit your ability to grow revenue faster. And organizations have simply said to themselves, there must be a better way. There has to be someone here who knows what each part of the business is doing and to make sure there's alignment. And I think it came around when you started looking at the customer lifecycle or customer journey. And before your marketing team stopped when that lead came in. Great, we got a lead. I don't know if it closed one or anything, but right. I got a lead and look how awesome I am.
Right. Marketing's job's done. Check. Whatever you guys do with this lead, that's on you.
Sales comes in and says, hey, listen, I got a 50% close rate here. I'm doing awesome. Check. Lead goes on to customer support, customer service fulfillment. Customer service fulfillment says, I have a 10% retention rate. Something's broken. And they couldn't track it all the way back through to the top of the lead funnel to understand, well, why was it broken? What was it about the process that wasn't working? Why are we not necessarily having the retention we're looking for? And it's such a low rate. It is because they were all siloed around what the communication was. Marketing didn't understand the value prop. The person came in with the wrong expectation. Sales sold them the wrong thing. Customer service is responsible for making it all right. Mm-hmm. And instead of saying, well, who is our ideal customer profile? Who do we want to go after? Who's the most revenue for the business? They didn't have that data to be able to say, okay, here's our ICP all the way from the start to finish. Revenue ops helping us with these KPIs. They're helping us see across the board. They're helping us see who we want to target. We now have the information to be able to say, this is the great lead. Marketing, go after this person. Sales, here's your highest propensity to close this particular type of business, and here's why. Here's all the tools you need to be more effective at closing. Customer service, here's what they're most interested in. to be able to close the deal. And by the way, you can then communicate this back to marketing and sales for upsells. So I think what ended up happening here was, one, the tools didn't really exist for RevOps. 4 or 5 years ago, marketing automation was a few workflows and an email that could be customized and personalized with a token, not campaigns, ad management, dynamic personalization on emails and landing pages, the ability to start measuring all of your assets and how effectively they're performing. That's just on quote marketing upside. But a lot of organizations, and you look at sales ops and you look at service ops, are there to support the organization. So I think what ended up happening was there was commonality among the roles. Sales, marketing, and service ops, they all have data. Data has to be aligned. They also have reporting that has to be aligned across the organization. They also have assets, marketing, sales, and service assets that have to be coordinated. And I think where it really came down to is they needed one person in particular who knew all of it and again could provide functions. So rather than marketing and saying, hey, listen, I'm gonna go buy this tool, let's buy it in the context of the organization as a whole. How's this gonna help out the entire organization? I don't want just marketing buying this new chat functionality tool. How's this gonna support sales? How's this gonna support service? How's this technology gonna be integrated into our technology stack? And having that person in that role to be able to see how everything works is kind of where RevOps came about. But I think the confusion around RevOps is because there's so much similarity to quote marketing ops, sales ops, service ops. I think there's two organizations where it matters the most. If you're a small team of like 10 people and like there's 100 people in your total addressable market universe, you do not need RevOps. Like this is not there much you're going to do. You start thinking RevOps when you start thinking quantity of data, quantity of contacts. So you talk, if there's only limited, if there's 100,000 plus total contacts in your addressable market, you probably need a RevOps function in your organization to tie all that data together so your teams can effectively market. The more data you have, the more sophisticated you're going to get, because that means any incremental improvement in conversions, more sales, better customer service can lead to a massive impact upon the bottom line. And I think organizations, they started to realize that if we don't make the investments now, we're going to miss out on all that incremental improvement. And also the technologies themselves have become complex.
Yes.
Take HubSpot.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of my theory behind RevOps is, you know what? We've been a HubSpot partner for a really, really, really long time. 2009, I think, is when we first bought HubSpot. And I used HubSpot for Square 2, right? I am not really a technology guy. I am definitely not like a RevOps expert, but I'm a marketer, right? So when I first started using HubSpot, it was exactly as you described it. Like, oh, I can send some emails out. Oh, I can make a landing page. Oh, I could do a CTA button for my website. Like, I kind of had like the toolkit I needed to take my marketing from a very basic level to a more advanced level. And then I got all the data associated with it, which to me was like in a candy shop, right? Like to actually know what was working in kind of real time, when previously all my marketing experiences were, well, we would go to a trade show, we would buy some ads in a magazine, we had a PR company, we were doing search, and we had a website, but I didn't really have a ton of data on the performance of my website, right? So, it kind of unlocked a whole new world for me, but it was still so simplistic. I think you're right. I feel like RevOps was an outcropping of HubSpot specifically, reached this level of complexity that it was no longer easy enough for marketers to do everything that they needed to do. Now you need someone who's a HubSpot expert, right? And understand some of the complex concepts you were talking about, like reporting and data and analysis. And I'm also a big believer that it's not really the analysis, it's the insights you find buried in the analysis, right? So if you don't do it enough, you're just going to look at a report and be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But when you've done it over and over and over again, you're like, oh, I see. If I make these changes here and use that data to inform my action plan, we're going to get better results. So that's a whole nother level of thinking that a lot of people never really had to do until they had access to this data. So nobody really has a ton of experiences with this yet, because the complexity of the software and the access to the data is relatively new, right? I mean, if I just look at your company, like you founded it in 2016. So like, like maybe even a little bit after that was the ability to do all the things we're talking about doing really starting to get easy. That's not even really that long. That's like 5 years. Like this industry that we're kind of like and this role that we're talking about, it's a baby role. Like no one really knows exactly what it's supposed to be doing yet, or how it helps, or who needs it. So I really think this has a lot to do with, kind of the tools becoming more and more complex, to the point where now you need kind of a specialist to understand them and use them appropriately. And like we were talking about, get the appropriate insights out of the data. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
We talk to clients all the time, and let's say they're a B2B organization. They have hundreds of thousands of contacts. What's a logical thing you may want to use in HubSpot? Target accounts. So maybe you have a contract with a particular division at, let's call it, GM, for example, but you can work with any division in GM. Well, now we need to start understanding, who are you providing air cover to from a marketing perspective? Who is sales reaching out to? How effectively are we targeting that account? There are tools in HubSpot that make this possible that didn't exist but a few years ago.
Right.
We were HubSpot's, I believe, first advanced implementation CRM partner. And I remember the early days of CRM. It was pretty simple. People were like, can we do this, this, and this? Not really.
Right.
But, the part of a RevOps person is process optimization. Your job is to understand process and change management. A lot of what RevOps people do is not fingers to keyboards, typing away, doing things. I would say it's 80-20. 80% is thinking through, to your point earlier, I see this report, it's telling me this data. What recommendations do I have for the sales, marketing, and service teams? What can I glean, can I insight here? Or, hey, we have this paid media company who's been sending all this money on Google ads. I don't see anything working, but they're telling you it is.
Yeah.
So where's the disconnect? Because the ads are not necessarily generating close won deals. Is it broken on our behalf? In other words, our salespeople are just not putting in the information, and I can fix that. But you could all of a sudden be spending a whole bunch of money as a company on something that isn't working because you're being told it is, and you don't have any way of measuring it.
Yeah.